Today is Wednesday, February 8th. We're breaking down the key announcements from President Biden's State of the Union and reaction from Republicans. Also, heartbreak and hope overseas as rescue teams pull more people from the wreckage of an enormous earthquake. Plus, close calls at American airports are getting lawmakers' attention now. We'll explain how AI is changing search engines and who just broke an all-time NBA record. Those stories and more news in today's episode. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. President Biden used his biggest platform to highlight what he considers the key accomplishments of his presidency so far, and to reiterate some of his top policy proposals. As he repeated many times, it's time to, quote, finish the job. Biden's State of the Union address was mostly positive, but he also criticized Republicans for not supporting some of his agenda and over some of their economic plans that are different from his own. There were a few times he was booed and heckled by Republicans in the chamber, which is pretty unusual in a presidential address to Congress. The part of his speech about the economy was easily the most tense. Biden challenged Republicans to lift the debt ceiling without any conditions, even though Republicans want to see spending cuts first. And he laid out some ideas that have failed to advance in Congress before, like a tax on billionaires and renewing the expanded child tax credit. Drawing more lines in the sand, Biden also said if any bill comes to his desk that would ban abortion or cut Social Security, he would veto it. Separately, the president called for reforms in policing and tougher regulations for big tech. On foreign policy, Biden promised to stay competitive with China while avoiding conflict and to keep supporting Ukraine as it fights off Russia's invasion. Finally, the president mentioned ideas Republicans have voiced support for in the past, like actions to address the opioid epidemic, mental health, and veterans' health. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders gave the Republican response to Biden's State of the Union. She said America's dividing line is no longer a choice between left and right, but a choice between normal and crazy. Sanders focused on what she called the culture war, saying Republicans will resist being politically correct to do what they think is right. She also criticized Biden's immigration policies, saying they've led to more opioids crossing the border, as well as ongoing economic troubles like inflation. Then Sanders looked to the future, saying, quote, it's time for a new generation of Republican leadership. The earthquakes that shook Turkey and Syria this week are now among the most devastating in recent history. As of early this morning, the death toll is up to nearly 8,000. And it's still expected to go up quite a bit because a lot of people are still trapped under huge piles of debris. That said, the number of survivors is also increasing. Search and rescue crews have pulled more than 8,000 people from under the rubble, and there's some hope more people will come out of it alive. Still, they have a rough road to recovery ahead. Overall, the World Health Organization estimates up to 23 million people could be impacted by this earthquake, in part because of the thousands of buildings that were leveled. Aid agencies are particularly worried about northwest Syria, since millions of people were relying on humanitarian support even before the quake. So the international community is rallying. Countries and organizations from around the world have responded to this crisis with money, equipment, and thousands of crews. The American rescue team is expected to land in Turkey today. The investigation into the death of Tyree Nichols is growing. It's the case that got national attention when video came out showing Memphis police officers brutally beating Nichols. He died 3 days after the confrontation. Well, now the Memphis city attorney says even more officers are under investigation because of it. And that's on top of the 6 officers who have already been fired, the 5 seen on the video beating Nichols, who were also charged with murder, and a 6th who fired a taser at Nichols as he ran away. So far, officials haven't said anything about how the others might be connected, but they say more information will likely come out soon. Also, last night, the Memphis City Council grilled the police chief about changes she's planning to make to her department. As for the officers facing criminal charges, they're due in court next week. At least some of them have already said they plan to plead not guilty. Some new research found a brain disease called CTE could be even more common in NFL players than once thought. You've probably heard about CTE before. Repetitive head trauma is thought to be the main risk factor, so it's often talked about in connection to athletes and military personnel. In the early stages, doctors say it causes depression and memory loss. In the later stages, people can lose their motor skills. Well, researchers at Boston University's CTE Center looked at 376 brains of former NFL players, and it diagnosed 345 of them with CTE. That's a 92% diagnosis rate. Now, to be clear, researchers are not saying 92% of all current and former NFL players have CTE, especially since those who decided to donate their brains to research might have had some reason for doing so. But they do want to mention the risks and let people know CTE can be treated. The professional leagues say they have been making progress since concussion protocols have gotten more strict in recent years. Plus, they've done more to educate players. But researchers are calling on sports leaders to better monitor head impacts and not just concussions. They point out that CTE develops through little hits over time, not just major injuries. All right, we have more news still coming up. But first, this podcast is sponsored by Indeed. If you're a business owner that likes to jump to the news highlights, you'll love Indeed. With Indeed Instant Match, you can instantly receive a list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Hiring? You need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. So don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Finding great talent doesn't have to be a second job. You can reclaim your time and find top talent fast with Indeed. Join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows hiring needs to be cost-effective when you're running your own business. So visit Indeed.com/newsworthy to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/newsworthy. Indeed.com/newsworthy. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Lawmakers are starting to put pressure on the FAA in response to a couple of close calls at U.S. airports. Delta and American Airlines passenger planes nearly crashed into each other at JFK Airport in New York last month. Then just this past weekend, a FedEx cargo plane and a Southwest passenger plane came within 100 feet of each other in Austin, Texas. So lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are raising concerns. At a House hearing yesterday, the FAA's head of aviation safety said his agency would focus on what caused recent incidents. Besides the near crashes, there was also that computer system outage last month that led to the first nationwide ground stop since the 9/11 terror attacks. So lawmakers say alarm bells are going off. They're expected to consider tech upgrades and funding levels for the FAA and its air traffic controllers soon. Plane maker Boeing is one of the latest companies to announce thousands of layoffs. It's cutting about 2,000 jobs in finance and human resources this year. The company says it's making the move so it can focus more on engineering and manufacturing, and that it will start hiring thousands of people to do that kind of work soon. So far in 2023, most companies announcing massive job cuts are in the tech industry, and that trend continued this week too. For example, Dell Technologies says it's cutting nearly 7,000 jobs. Also, Zoom is laying off 1,300 people because demand just isn't what it was at the height of the pandemic. Just last week, PayPal announced it was cutting 2,000 jobs too. And of course, that's on top of the tens of thousands of recent job cuts from Microsoft, Alphabet, Meta, Amazon, Salesforce, and more. All of that said, though, most other industries still seem to be thriving. The latest jobs report shows overall, the American economy added more than 500,000 jobs last month, even more than expected. Well, as expected, Microsoft unveiled a new version of its Bing search engine. It uses the same AI technology that's behind the popular ChatGPT, and it makes the whole search process more conversational. So unlike how it is now with most search engines, where you type in a question and get a collection of links back, this new AI version of Bing will give you answers in complete paragraphs, and you can have a conversation back and forth to refine your question further. Or you can ask it to write a poem, create a 3-course menu, or come up with a travel itinerary for you, just as a few examples. Now, all of that said, reports did find some search results that were not factual or had an obvious bias. If you want to check it out, though, the new Bing is live today for a limited preview. This won't be your only AI option, though. Remember, Google plans to bring its own chatbot to its search engine in the coming weeks. If your kids and teens are on their phones all the time, there's a good chance they are on TikTok. An annual study just came out from the parental control software Custodio, and it found for the second year in a row, TikTok is the social app minors are spending the most time on. It says kids and teens between ages 4 to 18 spend on average 107 minutes on TikTok a day. And that's way more time than they spend on other apps, including Netflix, Disney+, Instagram, and YouTube. But they are spending some time on those other ones too. And overall, the study says kids younger than 18 viewed about 18% more video content last year than the year before. He is known as the King, and now he's officially the new scoring king. LA Lakers star LeBron James has broken the record to become the NBA's all-time points leader, meaning he scored more throughout his career than any other player in NBA history. During last night's game, James surpassed the record set by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1984, scoring a total of 38,388 points over the years. The game against the Oklahoma City Thunder was stopped in the third quarter to honor his historic accomplishment. James thanked his family, fans, and the league, saying he wouldn't be who he is without all of them. Well, that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Work Wednesday, when we break down one interesting career or work-related news story every Wednesday. But first, a break to thank our sponsor, Rocket Money. The average person apparently has around 12 paid subscriptions. Think about that. If you think you're only subscribed to a handful of services, you might want to double check. And with Rocket Money, you can quickly identify and cancel all of your unwanted subscriptions. Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. Simply find the subscription you don't want and press cancel. And for a lot of them, Rocket Money will cancel it for you. So no more long hold times with customer service or tedious emailing back and forth. Rocket Money makes canceling subscriptions as easy as a click of a button. Over 3 million people have used Rocket Money, saving the average person up to $720 a year. And this year, I'm one of them. I saved over $50 a month by canceling a few subscriptions I forgot about within the first few days of signing up. Stop throwing your money away. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/newsworthy. That's rocketmoney.com/newsworthy. rocketmoney.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to Work Wednesday. A lot more American workers are back in the office. For the first time since the start of the pandemic, office occupancy rates topped 50%. That's according to Castle Systems, which tracks security swipes into office buildings in 10 major American cities every business day. Last week, it found those buildings were actually half full, or I guess half empty, depending on how you want to look at it. By their standards, full is how many employees swiped in back in early 2020 before COVID-19 forced most workplaces to shut down. Since then, a lot of employees decided to start working remotely for good. But more and more companies have been pushing people to come back to the office at least some of the time, including some pretty big companies like Tesla, Starbucks, and Disney. City officials want that too, since coffee shops, restaurants, and other places in business districts have had a tough time rebounding. But a lot of workers and unions say it's going to be tough for companies to recruit and keep employees if they don't offer at least some flexibility for remote work. Many experts tell the Washington Post offices about 50% full could be the new normal. All right, thank you so much for joining us as part of your daily routine. We'll catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.